And we're joined by Louis Prejean, the king, the legend of Pelicans Twitter. A day after a Pelicans loss. Louis, I know you hate that label, but you got it, man. You've earned it. How are you feeling today after that loss last night, man?
I feel amazing. The Pelicans have won 4 of their last 5 games. They're on a roll.
Okay.
No,
All right.
I feel amazing. Also, no comment on the king of Pelicans Twitter. I am not that. There are far more better people than I on Pel's Twitter. I would say you are better than me. So congratulations. I hand whatever was handed to me to you.
Okay, Louis.
There we go. Yeah.
How about the Pelicans meme king? How about that? You put out that Pelicans in the first quarter and it was the 96 Bulls or whatever, and that blew up. That was sick, dude. That was perfect.
Well, I can't wait till people realize I reuse a lot of memes. Like I'll probably just have like 10 photos and I'm like, I'll just apply them wherever I can use them. Yeah.
Yeah, just chilling in your draft.
Yeah, I would say like Ryan or Tyler. I don't know if any people follow them, and I'm sure they do. They're probably better at the memeing than I am, But the thing about it is absolutely no drafts on Pels Twitter. Maybe like the only time I'll have a draft is I will start typing a tweet out and then I'll be like, this one seems a little risky. And then I'll save it. And then I'm like, you know what? It's time to unleash this bad boy. Like, like if it's too early in the game, I'll be like, let me save it because I don't want to slander JJ Redick too much or something like that. Like I remember I edited his podcast logo, the Redick podcast logo, just to say the old man. And I was sitting on that one because I was like, you know what? JJ might catch fire. And then when he had a bad half, I was like, you know what? I'm firing this bad boy off. And then people started tagging JJ. And I was like, no. That's not what this is intended for. I should deserve whatever if like he was ever to reply and slam dunk on me. Like I totally deserve it. But like, no, don't tag him. Don't tag him. But
I was just thinking about that when you were mentioning it. That was so funny, dude. That was so funny.
I was like, no. I was like, no, don't tag him
Right?
on this podcast. I mean, it would be an honor to get slam dunked by JJ or Tommy Alter or whatever. I mean, I do have beef with Alter though, because I was watching their rankings of romantic comedies, and actually I might have beef with JJ too, because none of them had 500 Days of Summer, which is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, romantic comedy. So a little bit of beef there. And I think Tommy Alter, he might have replied and said, because I was like, hey, no 500, like, where would you rank 500 Days of Summer? I'm really curious. I think he said outside of the top 5 or top 10. I was like,
Yeah.
no.
Ouch.
But no drafts.
My beef, yes. My beef comes with, I think they were ranking Will Ferrell movies, and Anchorman wasn't the number one choice. That got me heated. Anchorman is one of my favorite movies of all time. My sister and I quote it all the time. All the time.
What was their number one?
I don't remember. It was a while ago. The fact that Anchorman wasn't number one is the thing.
I only remember what I don't like.
Right.
That was Anchorman.
Following the trend of everybody on Twitter. I only remember what I don't like.
Can we ratio people for good tweets? Right? We were just talking about ratioing. Like, I want to be ratioed one time, and we were just talking about this. Like, I want to be ratioed one time, but eventually the time will come where we ratio people for quality tweets. You're like, great tweet.
Hopefully Twitter turns around and becomes a little bit more of a positive place. Hopefully that happens. But, no promises, but Louis and I will do our part in that. How about that? So
we'll try.
Basketball, Pelicans basketball, back to it. Anything stick out to you about last night's loss? I know you said 4 out of 5. Pelicans are really rolling as of late. Anything that stuck out to you last night? There's like, this is a little concerning, but I know you're apparently not caught up on it.
The obvious is the 25 made threes, and I believe Christian Clark, who does great work, said this is the 4th time this season the Pelicans have given up a game with 20 or more threes in it, and all of last season they had 2. Different defensive philosophy, I totally understand it, but whenever a team comes out and lays out 44 points in the first quarter, you kind of have to make some adjustments. I understand packing the paint. I understand that you want to take away the most efficient kind of shots, and that's free throws and layups. But at a certain point, I was rewatching that third quarter, and as bad as they were offensively, and they were bad offensively, it was the defense that didn't quite adjust. Like they were still kind of packing the paint. I remember a play where Alonzo goes out and they got inside the paint, like really deep inside the paint. So there's two people drawn to that post up guy, and then under the basket, and then Lonzo goes help to go help out on the corner three for Patrick Williams. But guess who he leaves open? Zach LaVine, the hottest guy on the court. That shouldn't happen. So I think there are still some concerns about the 3-point defense and maybe some in-game adjustments. I would have loved to see them run them off the 3-point line, and even not even running people off the 3-point line. It's just getting the ball out of Zach LaVine's hands or Kobe White's hands. And that's something that we've seen in the past before with the Pels, where De'Aaron Fox, Donovan Mitchell, they cannot get the ball out of the guy's hands. So there are some concerns. Like it's crazy that they hit 25 threes and it wasn't entirely because of the Pelicans' poor 3-point defense or their lack of attention to the 3-point line. It was like some crazy shot making by the Bulls.
Yeah, it was nuts. And I mean, you hit it. It's in-game adjustments, right? And especially against a team that has Wendell Carter, Lowry Markkanen, and Otto Porter Jr. out, you'd think not to pack the paint, like, and then to attack the paint on the offensive side and not just keep launching threes. And it was just, I think it was a combination of the fact that they're coming off a back-to-back. That was a big thing. That was obvious last night. There was a lack of energy. I think Josh Hart played too much last night. And then the issue of the in-game adjustments. Looking at it here, trying to find the points in the paint, 50 points in the paint for the Pelicans. So maybe I'm wrong there, but 40 points in the paint for the Bulls. And then of course the Bulls going 25 of 47 from deep, shooting 53% from three last night. The Pelicans going 13 of 36 for 36% from deep. So, you know, Kobe White, who is, as far as I know, not a great 3-point shooter, just going off. Like, this is just a combination of a lot of things. Like, the Pelicans should have won last night. Like, in the grand scheme of things, they're the better basketball team. A lot of this was just circumstantial.
I'm glad you brought up the word circumstantial. I was about to bring up the circumstances surrounding the game because I thought some of the circumstances favored the Pels, like you mentioned, with their big men out and that wing player out in Otto Porter Jr. So you kind of looked at the circumstances and you're like, I know the Pels are on a back-to-back, but Zion only played 21 minutes in the previous game because of foul trouble. The highest starter with minutes was Alonzo Ball at 30. And the guy that played the most was a bench player with 40 minutes, Josh Hart, who was the game time decision. So really, I mean, we should have seen a fresher team. What was a little bit, again, the in-game adjustments were an issue. What was a bit of like just getting our hopes up was the end to that second quarter where they're sticking with their game, like entirely. They're sticking with their game because despite the hot Bulls shooting, they were sticking with the game plan. They were still moving the ball, getting open looks for Lonzo Ball on the wing or in the corner. Like they were still creating a lot of good looks and they were sticking with their game plan. What didn't happen in the third quarter, because the Bulls were still on fire from three, you still could have stayed in that game if you stuck with your game plan, and they didn't.
Exactly. They definitely deterred from it. And I think that's a combination of falling back into bad habits and the fact that they're still, you know, starting to come along with Stan Van Gundy. I think we're starting to figure out who the Pelicans are, but last night they fell into the bad habits because of the fact that they were tired off that back-to-back and just the fact that the Bulls just couldn't freaking miss. Like it's, I mean, you hit it all there. I think we got it all wrapped up for the loss to the Bulls last night. The sky is not falling, believe it or not, after winning 4 straight games and then falling to the Bulls. The Pels do take on the Mavs, who have been struggling as of late, and we'll be talking about that one here in a second. But I don't know if you've been able to listen to this. I think it's my most recent podcast, maybe the one before that. But I listed 6 reasons why the Pelicans are playing so well right now and why still have hope. I don't know if you've been able to check that out. But what I included in there for anybody who has missed it is defense and the elevation of Brandon Ingram and Zion, ball movement, Willie Hernan-Gomez and Kyra coming off the bench to energize the second unit, JJ Redick and Josh Hart contributing again, more Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball's play, and the ability to still make moves. Eric Bledsoe, Jackson Hayes, JJ Redick are still pieces that can be traded or would be most likely to be traded out of everybody on the roster, and maybe you can include Lonzo in there still, but whatever. Anything on that list that sticks out to you as in, like, that's the thing that has brought the Pelicans back to relevancy?
There's a couple things I think that I can get with. Let's start at the top, and that's Brandon Ingram and Zion defensively, because I thought Brandon Ingram was poor on defense. And if Brandon Ingram's just a little bit better, or, provides a little bit more consistent effort, and really the Pelicans' consistent effort, is something that's always going to be in question. But I thought Brandon Ingram had one of his worst games against the Bulls of the season, just considering everything and how he's been playing defensively versus how he played defensively against Chicago. Because if Brandon Ingram's better defensively, then it's shown that it leads to some success. Also, the playmaking of Zion and Brandon Ingram has been huge for the Pelicans' success as well. So you kind of look at those factors and you're like, they were kind of missing that against Chicago. I'll go to the bench too because of Kyra and Billy Hernan-Gomez. Got to shout out them. So Kyra has kind of taken the lead guard minutes from Nall. I think we've realized that Nickeil Alexander-Walker is not a lead guard. And when he's a shooting guard, a lot of his game rides on confidence. And I think he's in his head just a little bit dealing with some of the poor shooting that he's gone through. He's much better at attacking the rim at this point, and we're not seeing much of that. So with Nall, Kyra's taking those minutes, and Kyra looks great. Like, there was a point in the third quarter I was saying Kyra's saving this team. Like, he's actually maybe going to keep them in it. And I would say that with Billy, he just doesn't screw up as much as Jackson Hayes, if not really at all too much. Like, Billy is not a great player, or he's just serviceable to me. Billy is just serviceable. He's steady, and that's what you need. And that's what we've been asking for from these backup big men, because Jackson Hayes, Nicolo Melli is not getting it done like they weren't. They were actually hurting the team. And it's really no coincidence that you get some competent backup big man minutes and you start to see those Zion lineups with the bench start to improve. The Brandon Ingram, like all of the lineups, including the bench, start to improve. There's no secret behind that. It's just competent big man play. And that's what Billy's kind of been giving me. So I kind of point to those. We had to give Lonzo some credit. I mean, he was incredible in the first half against Chicago and then kind of fell off after that first half. But even before that Chicago game, he's been playing extremely well. And it's so true that when Lonzo plays well, the team plays well. And I think that's part of the reason why people get on Lonzo so much, because they know that if he plays well, the team's going to play well. And I really think that's part of it. Like, they just want to see more consistency out of him, because if he's going to be consistent, then this team's going to succeed. So you kind of saw in the first half, like, Lonzo's playing extremely well. That team's up 8. Like, that's the thing. So I kind of look at those factors on why the Pelicans have succeeded so far.
The big ones for me are definitely Billy. It's gonna be weird for me to transition to saying Billy. I've been saying Willie so much. Billy and Kyra coming off the bench, just the energy completely different from this team. They look like they're out there and want to play basketball. Like, obviously you're going to get that from Josh Hart, but I mean, early in the season, we thought coming off the bench, it was going to be Josh Hart, JJ Redick, and Melli, and Jackson Hayes and Nickeil. And like, Nickeil and Jackson Hayes bring energy, but they make mistakes. And Melli sucks. There's no other way to put it. JJ Redick's JJ's the old man, and you know what you're getting from Josh Hart every night, typically, except for when he pops off for 20 and 17 like he did the other night. But now you're getting the energy from Kyra. Kyra is just fearless, man. Shamit Dua has really been hammering that home on Twitter, and I mean, he's right. Kyra he's not afraid to attack the basket. He can make those cross-court passes. Yeah, he's going to make mistakes. Yeah, he's not going to finish layups sometimes, but he's 19 years old. 160 pounds, trying to take charges out there. The dude makes winning plays. Like, that's the thing about Kyra and Willie is Billy is that they make smart plays. They don't make a ton of mistakes. Kyra does, because he's young, like I said, but Billy's out there doing the things that Jackson Hayes doesn't do. He's disciplined. He doesn't look like he's 26. I would not guess that Billy is 26. I would guess that he is 30 based on the way that he plays, his basketball IQ. And Kyra had a sick cut to the basket. I think it was either last night or the night before, where it's just like that dude has basketball IQ beyond his years. And then obviously it's going to be the Brandon Ingram, Zion, and their elevation. But I think what that has culminated in is what Josh Hart has talked about fairly recently is trust. Like they trust each other now. That they've built some rapport together. They're playing together a lot. They're moving the ball like crazy. And I think it's all kind of a corroboration, a conglomeration, if you will, of things. And what it comes down to is that trust between the players. I think they're starting to enjoy spending time with each other. They're starting to get to know each other, and that translates to the basketball court.
And I'm happy Stan Van Gundy realized his 9 best players.
Yeah,
I'm happy that whenever a player has played poorly over a stretch, that he's not scared to at least play that player. And I know we were screaming for Kyra minutes, but look what's happened. We're getting significant Kyra minutes because Nickeil Alexander-Walker has made some poor decisions, and his decision making, his poor shooting is reason for his minutes reducing, and seeing Kyra get those minutes. Also, having a lead guard and more of a playmaker out there has helped the team. So I think that Stan Van Gundy has realized, Jackson Hayes going back, Jackson Hayes really had that opportunity when Steven Adams was out against Sacramento, and then he only logged 11 minutes and had 4 fouls. And then it was the Billy Hernangomez show in Sacramento. But that was Jackson Hayes' shot to really show, and he fumbled. And then guess what? The guy that was behind him played well, and Stan Van Gundy recognized that and said, all right, I'm going to start giving Billy more minutes, start sending Jackson Hayes. Nall's been struggling, some poor decision making. I know he gets a lot of deflections, and we can understand that he uses his length well, and he shows some upside on that defensive end. But however, he's hurting our team, and he's just not what we need right now. And he's realized that, and he's played Kyra more minutes. He's played Billy more minutes. So credit to Stan Van Gundy, because I know that we're gonna, always question some of the challenges that he makes, when he's going to call a timeout, when he's not calling a timeout, the in-game adjustments. We're always going to question those things, but credit to him for actually making moves when needed.
I want to talk about Nah here for a second too. And I mentioned Eric Bledsoe possibly being a trade asset going forward prior to the NBA trade deadline. And I think if Bled is traded, I mean, I don't know how that's going to work. It depends on who they get in return. Obviously, it's going to be Zion, Bi, Steven Adams, Lonzo Ball, and X. Whether that's Josh Hart, whether that's ultimately Kyra, whether it's JJ Redick. I mean, who knows if JJ gets traded too. I think Nah will flourish more. He has the skills to be a combo guard, and he can run. If somebody gets hurt, you can trust him to play the point guard position for a game or two. But in long stretches, in stretches of games especially, that ain't it. Nah is not a point guard. He is a shooting guard. He's a slashing shooting guard that needs to work on his jump shot. And I think the way he can get more confidence and start to play better is when he plays more minutes to get into a flow. I mean, that's what we saw when he scored 37 points against the Clippers. I think that's how you use him. Otherwise, if he plays 9 minutes like he did last night, 0 of 2 from the field, 0 points, obviously, 1 assist, 1 rebound, didn't really contribute all that much. And I think he's a pretty good on-ball defender. It's just about up here with him. I really do. I think it's in his head.
I agree. I mean, the Nickeil Alexander-Walker thing's so kind of confusing, because it's a thing where you need to play more minutes to really develop him and start to see something. But can you afford those minutes? Like, if you want to win basketball games, and that's what Stan Van Gundy wants to do, that's what David Griffin wants to do, like, because their job depends on if they win basketball games or not, is giving him too many minutes, helping this team win basketball games. And is it really about how we develop him? And if his development needs 20 plus minutes a night, like, is that the direction we want to go? And I think what we're seeing is the Pelicans are prioritizing winning some basketball games right now because they have shown that they can do it. I would say that for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's got to take advantage of his minutes. And that's all you can say. If you get 10 minutes, be it the best 10 minutes that you can play out on the basketball court. And guess what? If you play well in those 10 minutes, you get more minutes. That's just how it's going to work for him.
I think that's fair. It's when you say you got to give him more minutes, I think that's something that he has to adjust to, not the team has to adjust to. You can't adjust based on a player that isn't your star player. That's not how that works in the NBA. So I think you make a good point there. Now, with that flexibility of having Bled, Hayes, JJ Redick, picks, maybe some other pieces that we haven't been talking about. Also, before we go into that, actually, I wanted to say one thing. I'm still waiting on Wenyen time, man. I am a Wenyen stan. I am the exact opposite of Alonzo stan. I want to see that dude get some legit minutes. How do you feel about Wenyen, Lewis?
Oh, first off, I want you to change your profile picture to a picture of Wenyen Gabriel.
I'll think about it.
Wenyen Stan account.
Right.
Wenyen for MVP. No, I want to see Wenyen get more minutes. Again, if Stan Van Gundy wants to go that deep into a rotation, I know a lot of Stan Van Gundy's minutes determine on what the matchup is looking like that night. And what was happening earlier in the season, a lot of Jackson Hayes and Colomelli minutes off the bench, and that was two big men. And I don't think we're seeing two big men off the bench anymore. It's just Billy. And then you get Josh Hart, you get JJ Redick, you get Kyra, and then that's it. You're not seeing two big men off the bench. And it's like Wenyen, this in between kind of guy, like he would play the 4, like the 3. And I understand why you are a Wenyen Gabriel stan. I just don't see I see why he's not getting the minutes, if that makes sense. Like I can see why he's just not fitting. Like there's not enough minutes to allocate towards Wenyen Gabriel.
Yeah, I see it too. Yeah, I think the only way Wenyen's gonna get like a good amount of minutes in a game is if somebody gets hurt or something, or like has a rest night or something like that, which I will be all about as long as it doesn't affect like the trajectory of the season or anything like that.
Well, I will say this, it's such a weird season, and then you come into camp, like Wenyen Gabriel, he was a late signing as well, like towards the later part of the offseason. And it's kind of hard to just prove yourself in practice when you don't have so much practice time during a season. So I feel like that contributes to Wenyen not getting the minutes as well.
Right. And then, I mean, we talk about Jackson Hayes being a dude that like just churns out mistakes. Wenyen might be a little bit of that. He's going to make stupid fouls. He's a little bit raw, but he has the tools. I mean, he didn't lock up Anthony Davis in the playoffs last year, but he was an irritant to Anthony Davis. So he has the tools to be a good defensive player. And if he can become a baseline 3, corner 3 specialist, he could be legit. That's all I'm saying. We'll
leave it at that.
So, like I was mentioning, Bled, Hayes, JJ Redick, picks. Do you see the franchise, the Pelicans, wanting to make a move? Should they make a move? Are you an advocate of it?
Okay, I will ask you a question because this is going to be my answer. Do you feel like the overall consensus on Pel's Twitter is to make a big splash move? Do you feel like when you go through your timeline, you read the pulse of the Pelicans fan base, overall, do you believe that they want a big splash trade to happen this season?
Not right now, not at this moment. I haven't seen it in a while. I know when the Pels looked like crap, the poll was for Bradley Beal. That was the poll. I can tell you that. I mean,
okay.
It's if the Pels are bad, then it's trade everybody. If they're good, keep it as.
I only say this because whatever we think we want, David Griffin will totally do something that's 8 steps the other way. Like that's what he'll do. Like we all were screaming on draft night for move up in the top 6, get Atlanta's pick, let's see for Drew and get a young guy or something like that. And they go out and get Steven Adams and like Eric Bledsoe. It's like, who had this on their radar? So,
right. Yep.
Like David Griffin will always do something that we're totally not even thinking in the realm of. So whenever I think about the trades that are going to happen, like I didn't love the Lonzo and Kelly Oubre rumor, like the report that came out, because that doesn't feel like a solid move to me. Like I would rather keep Lonzo at that point and then try to figure it out from there and with his contract. I think that JJ is a definite move for me. I can see them, but as far as a splash move, I don't know if there's going to be a splash move because if you like what you're seeing from Brandon Ingram and Zion and you really want to like develop them, is making that splash move going to hurt? I don't think it would necessarily would. Like getting a Bradley Beal, would that hurt the development of Zion and BI? Not necessarily. I'm an advocate for anytime you can get a really talented player like Bradley Beal. I'm an advocate that if you can move on from the draft picks that you just are going to hold on to, I'm an advocate for it. Like, I'll be honest, like if they had the opportunity to pair Zion and BI with someone like Bradley Beal, I'm all for it. Like, use the assets that you have and to your advantage. Like, I'm all for that. Do I see it happening? I don't know. Like you said, it's so weird. Like, did David Griffin leak the trade rumors just to get his players to play better? And like, that's, you know what? That's a conspiracy that I'll be on. Like I secretly believe that he did. But like, I don't know. It's so tough to predict what is going to happen. I feel like the only certain thing that I can think of is a JJ Redick move.
Okay. Now, what do you get in return for? Are you shipping out just JJ Redick? Are you trading picks with it? Are you including another player like, I don't know, Jackson Hayes or?
Let's see. I think the future for Jackson Hayes is probably some G League time, and then he'll kind of stay around with the team. That's kind of like where it's heading right now. And look, the thing that we do when we talk about basketball is we can only look at the trends that are happening. It's hard to predict that what's going to happen too far down the line. We can only look at the trends. And right now, what's trending is towards Jackson Hayes, like should be in the G League bubble. And maybe he stays with the team after he's shown that he can develop a little bit of his game in the G League bubble. As far as JJ Redick, he wants to go to one of those like Northeast teams. Like he wants to go like Brooklyn because he has an apartment there, and he has an apartment with bathroom walls of Louis Vuitton purse bags. Like I can't get over that. He wants to like the Philly area. He wants to go there. And I think that I would love to get Matisse Thybulle on this team, if I'm just being honest, because you plug in Matisse Thybulle on Kobe White against Chicago. Is Kobe White hitting as many threes like he was? I don't think so.
Nope.
Like that would be an asset.
Yeah,
so
two good perimeter defenders then, because you got Lonzo too.
Yeah, exactly. And I would love like a Matisse Thybulle trade. I think what happens ultimately, if we're just being real, we're expecting package JJ with some picks and get another asset for the team. It'll probably be like 2 second-round picks for JJ, and then that'll be it. And we'll be like, all right, we moved on. That's it. We just opened more guard minutes up. That's what we did. And then we collected more picks, and then maybe we can go out and get something else.
I could see that too. I know everybody wants to include player for player. Everybody goes into the trade NBA machine and goes nuts. And so when I put together an article, I was thinking JJ plus some picks equals X, whatever. And I did the Celtics, the 76ers, and the Nets. The Nets was the hard one. That has to be a 3-team deal because they're loaded with salary. They have no first-round picks for the next 7 years. And the Pelicans and the Nets needs kind of line up. Also, why the frick would you go get JJ Redick when you have a horrible defense already? Like, arguably the best offense of all time. Frick it. Let's add JJ Redick to it.
I mean, your head coach is Steve Nash and the assistant is Mike D'Antoni. You just got to buy in.
Okay, touche. Anyway, so the move makes sense to be the 76ers or the Celtics to me. Obviously, if you can get like Daniel Tice somehow out of that from the Celtics, I think that would be dope. Front courts gets a little crowded then too. But I think that, that's a spacing big. I think he shoots like 38% from three or something like that. And he's on a 1-year, $5 million deal. So you can work that out. It gives you flexibility going forward too. And then the other one that I'm looking at here and that I put in the article was like Kelly Olynyk, because he's a veteran who can protect the rim to a degree. And I think he's a career 37% 3-point shooter. And Myers Leonard's in there too. He's another spacing big. But in terms of like wings that you can acquire, I don't know. Like what are you going to go get? Justin Holiday? Like, are the Pacers really going to be willing to give him up? And then there's like Norman Powell, who's shooting really well from the 3-point line, but the Raptors suck. So like, do you want to get Victor Oladipo? Like, he's going to be on a 1-year deal and then probably go to Miami. Like, it's just, there's also the pull for Zach LaVine, PJ Tucker. Like, there's there's just so much talk out there and so many conspiracy theories about what the Pels would do if they were to trade.
Well, that's why I always say whatever we think is going to happen, David Griffin's going to do something that we didn't even think about.
Yeah.
Or do we even want it to happen? We're not so sure. We want player for player, but David Griffin is probably just sitting there like, let's just collect more
Yeah.
from JJ. And that's why, I mean, it's hard to shake a thought that you have. And that's why some people are just so towards like player for player. So I can't blame anybody that would be like player for player. And it could ultimately happen where the Pelicans get a player in return. I just think, Griffin is kind of looking at like, we'll just open some more guard minutes up, acquire some more picks. I like what's going on. I think
Dump
that's what
some
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely see that too. And JJ, with the way he's playing this year, his value, I mean, excuse me, people like to shred players like JJ or Lonzo and then say, oh, we should get XYZ value for this, when it's like, here's what you're calling him on your team. Here's what you want from other teams for him. Like, it just doesn't add up. And I think the way JJ's playing this year, his age, he's not gonna fetch much unless they're like desperate for a 3-point shooter. They think they can create the space for him, and the Pels send some picks or what have you.
It'd be crazy if he got bought out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, all of this happens and the Pels realize they don't have a market for JJ Redick, and it's like he gets bought out, and it's just like, oh man, that would be awful. I do think JJ does have some value.
Why did you even suggest that,
I do think JJ has some value though, because I think a contender like a Philly or a Brooklyn could create a lot of open looks for a good shooter to great shooter in JJ Redick.
Yeah, I mean, he's top 15, top 20 shooter all time. Like, he's gonna get traded and have value because of that. Like, if anything, I know people are gonna have the recency bias, and deservedly so. I mean, he's not playing great this year, but he is a top 15, 20 player or shooter of all time. So yeah.
No, if he's on the Pels, he's a top 15 player of all time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No bias at all. No bias on Pelicans Plus. Never.
No whatsoever.
So, kind of like a take on the Mavericks tomorrow night in Dallas. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, Mavericks are one of those significantly disappointing teams so far this season, 12-14. Luka, many picked him to be the MVP this season, and the Mavs to make a big jump. Not happening. Kristaps has been a shadow of himself. Coming off 3 straight wins, albeit 2 of them were against the Timberwolves, who the Pelicans lost to, and last night against the Hawks. So they may be feeling a little bit better about themselves. Luka is averaging 27.8 points, 9.3 assists, 8.7 rebounds, but he is shooting 30.9% from deep, and the team is shooting 34.1% from deep. So that's good to hear. That's some solace after last night's shredding by the Chicago Bulls from the 3-point line. Anything you're looking at this one, Louis, matchups, anything for the Pelicans to expose or for the Pelicans to watch out for?
I think the whole Luka Doncic thing is interesting, because is he going to light you up in the same ways that a guard could? Like the Pelicans let like Zach LaVine, Donovan Mitchell, De'Aaron Fox really torch them. And I think what's interesting, like Luka is definitely capable of leading a team to a win and having a big night, and having that big night translate for his team to a win. So who's going to be on Luka? Like, I know Lonzo has some size, and if he wants to take on Luka, then absolutely. But you kind of look at it, and Brandon Ingram is coming off just a poor game defensively. Would you want Brandon Ingram to kind of take that challenge on Luka? Is this like a big game for Brandon Ingram to prove himself in his development on the defensive end? Obviously, you'll go to the big name like Luka and try to see who's going to pair up against him. Who's going to guard him? I would like to see the best perimeter defender for the Pels, Lonzo Ball, on him, obviously. But it's a thing about, trying to limit him as much. And look, take the ball out of his hands. I mean, the Mavericks are going to do whatever, and he'll bring the ball up, but take the ball out of Luka's hands. And you let a hot 3-point shooting night just beat you. And I know it's frustrating to watch for Pels fans, but if you're front office, you're just looking at the averages and you're saying there's no way like this team can hit over 23s and beat us. It's happened this season, but that's what they're looking at. And you're like, you know what? Can't I mean, if they beat us from a hot 3-point shooting night, then so be it. And then I'm kind of looking at some other players. Like you always got to factor in like some weird stuff that happened, like a Tim Hardaway Jr. 30-point night uh could happen. You always kind of have to look at that. Porzingis. I remember covering the Dallas home game last season, and Porzingis was absolutely a monster defending the rim and causing a lot of havoc for them. You know, I think for Zion, he's kind of gotten in some foul trouble the last couple of games. I think being the on the other end of that and getting like a Porzingis in foul trouble, would definitely help the Pels. If you're looking at the Mavs, I remember like what I would do if I was a Mavericks fan is definitely bring up all the circumstances surrounding my team. I would say we've missed people due to safety protocols. We've had injuries, like we've had games postponed. Our season has been just so weird, and now finally we've got players back, and finally we're winning 3 in a row. Like I would definitely do that if the Pelicans were on that end of the bargain. Like, but I think Dallas should scare you, but I think with the Pels, they've actually been playing well. They got to stick with their game. Just kind of that's what I'm looking at for this one. I don't think it's necessarily the Mavericks in this one. I really want to see the Pels just stick to their game plan for a full game and not let one bad quarter defeat them.
Like they did against the Suns or the Bucks. I mean, they won those games. They played. There were some mistakes, obviously, against the Bucks, but they held on. Like if anything, just hold on for your damn life. I mean, the one of the issues that Stan Van Gundy has brought up is the issue of playing with pace for 3 quarters and then just trying to survive the last quarter. And so don't do that. But I mean, you said it. You play your whole game, or play the whole game. Play your game, the whole game. There we go.
Yeah.
But and you mentioned Luka on the offensive side of the ball. I think you got to attack and try to expose Luka's lack of defense on when the Pels are on offense too, because that makes him work. That takes him out of the game offensively because he's just dead tired due to the he can't play defense. Luka is not a defender, and so I think it's a night where you can lean on Lonzo Ball to expose him, and Lonzo has to attack the basket, get some Kyra minutes, attack the basket. Nah, same thing. I'm not too worried about Kristaps this time around. I know he had some awesome games against the Pels last season, but he's just a shell of himself. I mean, he's not defending the rim like he once was. He's not. I mean, it's almost like he's just not as mobile as he once was. That's the thing. That's the big deal for Kristaps this season. He's just not the player he was last season or the years prior. And the other thing for me, on top of everything that you said, Louis, is bouncing back from that loss to a bad team. It's bringing that energy back, because the Pels were in it and they were going through the motions, but it just didn't appear like they had that energy other than, the bench unit from Kyra against the Bulls.
Yeah. You look at it, like bouncing back from a loss to Chicago, where some of the circumstances did favor you. I know you were on the second night of a back-to-back, but I felt like the circumstances were really favoring the Pels. And I kind of look at how they bounced back so far against other teams. Like, since that Minnesota loss, and that was really the like the low point of the season. But, they had won 6 of the last 8 ever since that Minnesota loss. And I know they just lost to Chicago, but it was such a great response to see from that Minnesota game. And, you kind of look at it like, I want to highlight Steven Adams too, because I was rewatching that third quarter, and whether Adams was tired or whatever was happening, he really had some lapses on defense that you don't normally see from Steven Adams. And like, he completely fell asleep on one defensive possession. So you kind of look at it, and Steven Adams, who had a poor game against Minnesota, where he was supposed to be able to take advantage. He holds a lot of accountability on himself, that I think where he might look at that Chicago game and say, I need to be better. I think Brandon Ingram and Zion, with Stan Van Gundy as the head coach, I know Stan Van Gundy is harping on the things that they need to do, and how they respond is going to be so important. That's why I say, Dallas, they'll have their own issues that you'll have to deal with. And we can obviously talk about the players that they have, but when it comes to the Pelicans, they're not good enough to where, they play their game, they win. It's just they have a better chance of winning if they play their game. And why we look at the Pels so much is they just haven't stayed consistent. And you want to see them get back to that team that was winning 4 in a row. Luckily, they're not too far removed from it. So you know what? I kind of like what's going on entering this game.
I think I do too. I think the Mavs are going to bring it, but the Pels are more than capable of winning. And there's things to expose that the Mavericks have, but the Pels can definitely win this game. It starts a bit of a road trip, I think, for the Pels. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but it'd be good to bounce back after that 1-8 sort of road trip that they had there for a little while. Now, Louis, typically at the end of the show when we have a guest on, we do some NBA questions, and we haven't done that in a little bit. And so we're hitting you with them. First question, Louis.
Okay.
No pressure. Does Jeremy Grant deserve to be an all-star even though the Pistons are terrible?
Yeah. I don't put a lot of stock into all-star. They let fans vote. Like Alex Caruso is like one of the top vote getters, you know. So
Yeah,
like I don't put a lot of like remember that time like Zaza Pachulia was getting votes? What was happening? What like I don't put a lot of stock into the all-star thing. So yeah, he deserves to be an all-star. Like who cares if your team is like only has 5 or 6 wins, as long as you're playing like an all-star. It's not the same thing as like MVP or all NBA where you can actually look at the wins and your team's success. It's just the all-star. Like, are you a great player? Yes. Are you one of the best at your position in that, like in your conference? Yes, you should get in. Like, and Jeremy Grant has played really well this season to the point where you say, all right, get him into the All-Star game. And you know what? I think he could get in. But yeah.
Now, how do you reconcile Bradley Beal not getting in last year if you put Jeremy Grant in this year?
Yeah, like Bradley Beal, like he should have got in.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you play well.
All right.
You play well as an all-star. You get in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that's keeping me like, because Bradley Beal was averaging 35 points last year, like he is right now, and he didn't get in. And so, like, how do you take Jeremy Grant, who literally just switched teams and is just getting so much more touches? Like, he's the same player that he was last year. To me, he's just on a really bad team, so he's just their best player and scoring a bunch of points. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, they beat all the good teams. It's like, and then they just suck in general.
I don't know. I just kind of look at it, and the All-Star game is supposed to be fun. Like, and if you could get a guy as like a first-time All-Star, then I think you kind of like, all right, you played well enough to get into the All-Star game. I don't care if Blake Griffin has regressed to the point like of do we actually bring him off the bench or something like that, or like what do we do with Blake Griffin? Like we like Killian Hayes is like getting minutes until he got injured, and like you look at the Detroit roster, you looked at the Detroit offseason, you're like, why are they giving so many contracts away, and like how many roster spots do they have, and
how many
like
centers do they have now?
Yeah, like do I blame that on Jeremy Grant? No. So like if you play well, you should get into the All-Star game.
Oh, okay, touche.
Detroit did him no service.
I think the thing about if Jeremy Grant gets in, like 10 years from now, we're gonna look back and like Jeremy Grant was an all-star in 2021. Like he's a good player. I just don't see him as being an all-star. I think that's gonna be one of those things. Like, I mean, I've got the list of the worst all-stars of all time right here. Like, do you know who Dale Davis is?
Not coming to mind.
Okay. What the frick? Has Kobe Bryant on the list for 2014 and 2016.
What the heck? What kind of list are you looking at? Maybe Dale Davis was a Hall of Famer.
I know.
We just don't know.
James Donaldson, 1988. No idea who that dude is. Anyway.
You know what? So what if Jeremy Grant makes that article? I do not care. Get him into the All-Star. Am I a Jeremy Grant stan account? I don't know.
I think you might be now.
I think I might be now. This podcast has converted me into a stan. I wonder how Pistons Twitter feels about. Like, I know they're probably like, yeah, get the guy in. Like, our team's so bad, just get the guy in.
I know Bradley Beal is getting a ton of votes this year because of how he was shunned last year. So I'm sure the Pistons are overcompensating to a degree for that for Jeremy Grant. But Second question in terms of the NBA questions here for Lewis. Are the Utah Jazz legit? Do you think that they can win a title this season? This has been all over Twitter today specifically. But do you, Louis Prejean, think that they can win a title this season?
Can they win a title? Like, I think there's a difference between being real and winning a title when you look at the Utah Jazz and their postseason success recently with Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. I kind of look at it like they could be a Western Conference Finals team. I wouldn't be prepared to say they could make it to the finals and then win the finals. I'd be really hesitant on it. I do still think the Lakers and the Clippers have more top tier talent, and that's what's important when it comes to the postseason. What kind of top tier talent that you have. So I don't think Rudy Gobert is any kind of top tier talent. Like he's great, he's a great defensive player, sure, but I don't think he's a top tier talent that could win you some postseason games enough to win the championship. Not like an Anthony Davis type, right? Not like a Kawhi Leonard type. Like how much is that Donovan Mitchell how much of Donovan Mitchell's improvement is going to lead to that playoff success. So, I kind of look at the Jazz and I think they are real and they can present some real problems in the playoffs, but I'm not prepared to say they'll win a title.
I mean, for me, what it comes down to is just the West is an absolute bloodbath. Like you got the Lakers, the Clippers, and then there's a pretty big drop off between those top three teams and then that next tier, just because they're all pretty close to 500. But it's because the West is so damn good. Like then you got the Suns, the Nuggets, the Warriors. I mean, on the Pelicans' best nights, they can compete with some good teams, and they're like 10th or 11th in the West right now. The Mavericks are like 12th in the West, and they've got a ton of talent. I mean, the Trailblazers, Damian Lillard, he's going to go for 60 here and there, and then when you look at the East, I mean, there's going to be teams out of there that are going to be competing with the Jazz too. And I just don't think you can rely on Jordan Clarkson to be the guy that is complementary to Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs. And he's their second leading scorer right now. And then it's Mike Conley and Bogdanovich. And you just, in this league, you have to have 2 to 3 stars. And for this team, it's Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. And I just don't know that they're going to be able to go out, score a bunch of points, and ultimately like close down a playoff series for you.
Exactly. No, I'm with you. It's just the thing is, they're off to a great start. What's funny is, in previous seasons, they've been known to get really hot in the second half of the season. So I almost want to be patient. That's not as fun to be patient, like to see how they look in the second half of the schedule. That's not fun, but I'm going to wait to see how they play in the second half of the season as well to determine if they're actually real. I totally agree with you on the Jordan Clarkson thing. That's something that I said and something that I got so annoyed with in the first game of the bubble because I was thinking like, why is Jordan Clarkson beating the Pels right now? This is so annoying. Like we can't lose to Jordan Clarkson, and he's turning into a real bench piece, but not a real second star next to your star player. Kind of like how we look at Milwaukee and Chris Middleton, and Chris Middleton is a way better player than Jordan Clarkson, and he's still not able to push the Bucks past, the second round of the playoffs.
Right. I mean, Giannis can only do so much without a jumper. And the fact that he's shooting like 50% from the free throw line this season or whatever it is, it might have improved, but I know that was a big storyline for a while. Now, speaking of the Bucks, out of the East, are you taking the Nets or the field to come out of the East?
I'll take the field.
Okay.
I don't even think I thought about it for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I love, again, top tier talent when it comes to the postseason, and harder to find a team with like more top tier talent than James Harden, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant. But when it comes down to it, I mean, gotta play some defense, man. Like you look at the 9 of the last 10 NBA champions, and they've been top 10 in defensive rating. That's what wins you championships. So I'll take the field when it comes to the East and the Brooklyn Nets.
Defense and continuity, and the Nets have neither. Like, yeah. I mean, like they've got star power. Like you need star power, you need continuity, and you need defense in the playoffs. And they've got the star power. They can build the continuity over the remaining part of the season, but you got to do something. They got to make a move to get the defense. I mean, the East, not as much of a bloodbath as the West. There's some clear teams at the top. You got the Bucks, you got the Sixers, you got the Celtics, and the Sixers might make a move. Celtics might make a move. Kemba's been playing pretty bad for the Celtics as of late, but I mean, when it comes down to the field, it's for me, it's the Nets versus Bucks, Sixers, Celtics.
Yeah, I can get with that. And, I always battle with like the 76ers, how real they can be under a new head coach when Doc Rivers hasn't had the best postseason success as well. Whenever they get into the postseason, I think Joel Embiid's playing like a MVP candidate right now. So, and you look at Ben Simmons, like, has he really developed into a postseason player that you can ride next to Joel Embiid? So you kind of look at the field, like I still like Milwaukee. I still really like Milwaukee and what they do. It's just about their head coach and like play your guys, play Giannis. So you kind of look at it. I'll still take the field as of now until the Nets learn how to play defense.
Now you mentioned Joel Embiid as an MVP candidate. Who's your top choice for MVP right now? Do you have one?
I mean, it's the talk is Joel Embiid or LeBron James, and
I
it's
think
hard to
Nikola
look.
Jokic is in there too.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Nikola Jokic, it's just based on their team right now. Until their team improves their record, I think that's when Nikola Jokic will get into that LeBron James, Joel Embiid conversation. Right now, it's between LeBron and Joel. It's hard for me to kind of pick. Like, my instinct is to say LeBron because he's actually shown like some really good, nice effort despite of like AD's kind of weird start to the season. Like Anthony Davis has shown like how much is he really getting into gear as the season goes on. So I'll just say LeBron. I'll default to LeBron right now, just because I still think he's the most valuable piece to a team.
I was hoping you would say somebody else because I was going to say LeBron. I was asked the other day, if you could go to any sporting event this year, what would it be? And this was prior to the Super Bowl. And I said, game whatever, where the Lakers close out the finals, assuming that the Lakers make it to the finals, because I want to see LeBron win another title. Because LeBron, for a long time, so I grew up a Heat fan. I think I've said that on this podcast, but it was Dwayne Wade. It wasn't because of the Heatles or the Big Three or whatever. Dwayne Wade's my guy. He's my favorite player of all time. I have a poster of him right over there. And so I was a little bit upset when LeBron left, but I have since, and he went back to Cleveland, even though he won the title, whatever, sappy story. And I want to appreciate LeBron before he leaves the league. And I have so much respect for that guy. And I think it would be insane for him to win an MVP at his age. What is he, 38? 37?
36.
38? 36?
36, yeah.
Yes. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
We got Google, Elliot.
Yeah, we do.
Look, I got my phone right here. Like,
how old? Yeah, how old is
36.
He's 36? Okay. The first suggestion was how old is NBA Youngboy on my search.
What were you Googling? Like,
I don't listen to NBA Youngboy. I don't even
36. December 30th is his birthday. So
okay. So he'll be 36 by the end of this season. I think it would be insane for him to win an MVP at the age of 36. What he's doing right now is unparalleled. I think people who say, the end of players' primes isn't, 30 like it used to be. It's look at LeBron. LeBron is an anomaly. Like, I'm not saying that the players' primes end before like at 30, like on the dot. That's not how it works anymore. I think you can continue to play in your prime until 32, 33, what have you. But LeBron, that dude is so far beyond anybody that's ever played in the league, to me.
Absolutely. I think why does it? I mean, the MVP kind of award is based on narrative and all this, and that does drive it a lot. But it's just so, I think if you're the most valuable player to your team, then you should win the award. You don't necessarily have to have the best record in the league or average like a triple double. It's just if you're the most valuable to your team and that team is like winning, then I mean, come on, like how can you argue that they're not the MVP of the entire league? So I think LeBron. I mean, it is boring for both of us to say LeBron. Doesn't make for great podcasting, but it's hard to deny.
If it wasn't LeBron for me, it'd be Joel, like you said, because of record. Nikola Jokic playing insane basketball right now, and the Nuggets I think are starting to turn around a bit. But as of right now, with the narrative and where these teams are at, Joel Embiid would be my second choice.
Yeah, Two sides to the ball too, by the way.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid. Yeah.
Preach, Louis. Out here teaching us a thing or two. So, folks, he is at Louis Prejean on Twitter, Louis Prejean. That is a follow you definitely want to have happen before the end of this show. Go on Twitter, do it right now. Louis, thank you so much for joining us, man. This is a blast.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.